Hello and welcome to the Metapod Podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta and revolving into the next year. Sean, it's 2023. How did you enjoy your holidays?
Oh my gosh, it was good. It was relaxing. We didn't do an episode last week, as you know, most listeners will have noted.
Just holiday. Like, I was out of the state. Sean has been having a lot of trouble with his internet stuff, and we were just like, you know what? Enjoy the holiday season, be with the fam, be with some friends, just don't think about, work.
Yeah. And so I am now, listeners, if anything goes awry or sounds weird or whatever, I am on a different computer. My big rig is out of commission now for various reasons. So Jake and I were doing a lot of troubleshooting, some tech troubleshooting before we even got to recording.
I arrived home, set this up 20 minutes after being home, and then we did 20 minutes of troubleshooting, and here we are. And for our video watchers, you may see in the background of my thing, I have very tall boxes. I stopped by an IKEA on the way home and
nice.
Got a bookshelf. It was very comical seeing this gigantic one, trying to put that in my car. I drive a Buick Century. So it's a real small car. So trying to get that in there, I'm sure from somebody else watching me in the parking lot was very, very comical. I mean, man, that thing is heavy.
I will also say, Jake, obviously you were getting a bookshelf. I think,
obviously.
People who follow Jake on the interwebs will know that Jake has a wide collection of manga.
It's a borderline problem, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We fight it. We pick and choose our battles.
Yeah. But Jake, I will say real quick, before we get into Pokemon, I have been meaning to go to that crazy manga store in New York City. There's one that's 4 stories or whatever in Midtown area. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I keep getting TikToks of oh, have you been to this? It's a manga lover's paradise and whatever. So if I go there, Jake, I will send you pictures, and you'll have to tell me which.
To get One Punch Man. I think you'd like One Punch Man.
Okay.
I did though get a Pokemon Advent calendar.
Oh,
the Pokemon
nice.
Center had made the Advent calendars for this year, and I know one of the moderators in my Twitch and Discord and stuff, Mel, she got one of the Advent calendars, and it has Pokemon cards and stuff in it. So I did get Pokemon cards for Christmas. Will not open it up until next year, though.
So you got it after the fact, and you're like, well,
I got it on Christmas Day, and it's you can't do it. You have to wait a whole. So those packs are going to be vintage.
I know. Next year you're going to be cracking these packs, and you could put that in the thumbnail. Old vintage, old school packs.
Old vintage packs worth thousands of dollars.
Sword and Shield base set. What?
We're in Scarlet and Violet, and we are going to be talking about some new cards that are coming, but not necessarily Scarlet and Violet. We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming Scarlet and Violet set in this year, but mainly we're going to be talking about Crown Zenith. If you've been following Pokemon TCG news, the trading card game, cards are being revealed left, right, and center from Crown Zenith. People are excited. We're excited, Sean. But do you know what we're more excited about?
A 5-star review.
We're excited to read the latest 5-star review on the Metapod podcast. This lovely listener, Calcat's 5-star review. It started titled, "It's competitive PTCG CO ... because the title's so long, you can't see it on Apple because Apple's bad. But let's just say it's competitive PTCG content. 5 stars. I think the word is content if I had to take a guess from context clues. But it says, haven't listened to any other Pokemon TCG stuff, but this is a tough act to beat. I listen to Magic the Gathering podcast as well, but this duo brings the energy into the competitive scene that gives Magic diehards a run for their money. Content like this made me fall in love with the game again. Great job, guys. Thank you.
Dang.
Calcats.
We're giving Magic diehards. That's high praise.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
I watch those that Magic content too nowadays. So, if you love, the Professor and Pleasant Kenobi, MTG Goldfish. Anyways, I'm talking.
Maybe I'll have a Black Lotus at one point in my life, when I make millions of dollars.
Just make a proxy, Jake. Magic's all about proxies now.
You know what? I wish Pokemon would do that same thing for like computer search. That would be great.
Oh,
But
God.
expanded events also don't exist. Anyways, Sean, we've got a lot to talk about today, especially if you're on the competitive side, but also a collector.
Yes.
For those of you who do not know, there are sleeves that come out in like Japan and stuff, sleeves, deck boxes, designs that don't necessarily make it to the US. And when you go to a regional, right, or maybe card shops, they'll have them for sale, for trade, things like that. And they're very cool to pick up. I have plenty of Japanese sleeves. I've got like a Nessa set of sleeves. I've got a Pokeball guy set of sleeves, bunch of cool different sleeves. But this is an interesting one, Sean. The Alolan Vulpix sleeves are banned from Worlds and higher level play, which that's an absurd headline. I understand what it means, but when I first looked at it, I was like, from Worlds and higher level play, I was like, there's something higher than Worlds? We're going to galaxies?
The ordering of the sentence, yeah.
But anyways, this PokeBeach article is a good article. It gives you a lot of good information on it. Pokemon Japan and Pokemon Asia have announced a ban on the Alolan Vulpix sleeves released in Japan on September 2nd, if you're curious as to why, because usually like I don't know if a specific set of sleeves have ever really been banned before. But the reason that these sleeves got banned is because in the different batches of sleeves that are produced, there are color variations that happen. And if you're familiar with Pokemon rules, Pokemon trading card game rules, usually if you have like a different colored sleeve or any sort of sleeve that makes it different than the rest from in your deck, that can be considered a marked card, which can give you an advantage in a game if you know what card is in that specific sleeve, and therefore it's like considered cheating. So not a surprise that this ban was made once they found out that there were color variations, but very interesting that this happened, Sean.
Yeah, I'm like, it makes sense. It says the one thing that I thought was a funny statement, which is like kind of true, but also kind of not, which is the Pokemon Company is not accepting returns or exchanges as the color variation does not impair the product's use as a card sleeve. And I'm like, yeah,
That's
technically,
true. You know,
it's
like
technically a sleeve, but like the product's use as a card sleeve includes play. Right? Like you didn't get a pack of 60 for individual cards to be. No, you get a pack of 60 to sleeve 60 cards for a deck. So
exactly.
Like, but is it Pokemon?
It's interesting too, because like if you watch Japanese card game tournaments or something, a lot of times players will play with like these kinds of sleeves. Like Japanese sleeves are very different than like the sleeves that you get in an Elite Trainer box. They're thinner, they're slicker, in my opinion. They are more clear in terms of being able to see the card. Like the material, I don't even know really how to describe it on the ETB sleeves, the Elite Trainer box sleeves. They're like thicker and they're not as clear.
They're like slightly more opaque.
Yeah, that's the word. Sean's the smart one in this podcast duo, but they're different. But I also know that double sleeving is very popular in Japan, so I'm not 100% sure if like the cool Alolan Vulpix card is on the outside, like the second sleeve or the first sleeve. I'm not 100% sure on that. I should have done my research while we were troubleshooting, but either way, like you don't see that very much at like top level regionals and ICs of like American players or even European players. Really, just like it's Japan that's playing a lot of these. Usually, you know, American players or whatever, European will play like Ultra Pro or Dragon Shield or, you know, those big name companies that you hear and that sponsor, you know, streamers, content creators that you may follow. But these sleeves are officially banned from the following events: Pokemon World Championships, Pokemon Japan Championships, Japan League tournaments in Japan, a bunch of other tournaments in Japan,
and Asia,
right? And a bunch of tournaments in Asia. It is, however, you know, the sleeves are never sold in America or anything like that, so there's not really going to be an official English announcement, but it is said in Poke Beach, quote, but it'll probably be a rule included in next year's Worlds documents because, well, later in the article, when they list the following events, it does say Worlds. So if you like to get these, whatever, I would maybe, I don't know, I would maybe stray away from like all of these kinds of cards. I don't know. That's probably a little bit of panic, but if it's happening to one, I feel like it could happen to another. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's easier to spot because, like, okay, if you're watching online, if you're, on YouTube or whatever, I'll describe the sleeves. There's a few Alolan Vulpix playing in the snow, and the color palette is very light and two-toned, meaning it's all white or like a light blue. I'm wondering if it was easier for them to maybe catch the color variation because it's really only two colors. So
that's interesting, actually, because I'm thinking of the sleeves that I have. Like, I have red and black set of sleeves. Like, I have the Nessa one is like blue, and it's really just blue. And then the Pokeball guy is like, I don't even know what one of the colors is because it's a giant, like, Pokeball guy's the whole anyways.
Yeah.
And none of them are kind of that two-tone deal like you're describing with the Alolan Vulpix. Like, they're all more definitive colors. So, and plus, like, in the Poke Beach article, and, I don't have a tweet or anything to show both of the like the lighter tone or the different color variant, or maybe there's multiple different color variants, like darker, lighter, regular, purple, printing error. I don't know, but I would assume that it's probably a lot more noticeable than I think. What is it? Is it Dragon Shield or Ultra Pro that people were saying that sometimes like they'll buy one box of Lightning Dual Matte.
Yep.
I'm using Lightning Box as an example. Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yep.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, I mean, as a rule of thumb in general, if you're sleeving up any deck for competitive play, use the same sleeves from the same box.
Yeah.
Because, and like have all of your like extra sleeves come from that box because there's variation. There's always variation, even between the same company's sleeves. Like I've had that, right? Where like if I use different Lightning sleeves from different ones, I can tell which is from which.
Mm-hmm. And I would recommend buying boxes of like 100 or something that's more than 60.
Yes.
Because just naturally shuffling, stuff like that, cards get bent, sleeves get bent, they rip, whatever. That's just the nature of playing a card game. So buying a set that has more than 60 allows you to replace those a couple times before maybe you have to buy an entirely new set or something like that.
Yeah. Jake.
But enough of that stuff, Sean. Enough of that. I know I'm a little slow on my transitions. I'm really lagging on them out here. There's a new trademark that's been filed. We usually talk about the trademarks. If you don't know what we mean by that, it's when the Pokemon company files the right of something, of like a name or whatever. That doesn't always mean that it's this specific thing or whatever. But when we usually talk about it, it's usually for a set name, as they have in the past. This newest one is titled Raging Surf. Sean, is the set names. It's about, they usually come out on the 4 to 6 months after we talk about them or so. So this is maybe possibly a set that releases in Japan between May and July. And there's a couple different Pokemon that could be referenced in this, because Raging Surf, Shad, you could probably assume that's like water or something like that. I don't know. Surf being a move in the game.
Well, it could be water. I will say, though, they've done this thing in the past few years where each word has its own meaning. So, like,
fighting types?
Well, yeah, it could be. It could be that raging is fighting, or so who knows? I don't know enough about Scarlet and Violet, the game, to like really guess which Pokemon it is. But you're probably right. It probably has something to do with, water types for the surf. But then raging, I think, who knows actually what that could be.
If you are afraid of spoilers in Scarlet and Violet, maybe you haven't beaten it, hit skip 30 seconds. Or like go ahead a minute. I might spoil something for you. As it says on Pokebeach, we're not sure which Pokemon the set name is referring to. It could be Dondozo or a Tatsugiri, which are both water types and Titan Pokemon. That is only speculation, though, in that essence. But I think that's probably a pretty good guess. I mean, Titan Pokemon, something that Scarlet and Violet really, really likes. And so it makes sense, you know, to use a Titan Pokemon as kind of like the staple if there's no like water legendaries or things like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They usually, like I said, 6 months or so. This will be the Japanese set, and then we'll get it in, I don't know, September, maybe.
Oh, God, we'll get it 100 years from now. You know, it'll be 2024 we're celebrating, and we finally get these cards. But you know, Sean, what's coming very, very soon? Yeah. Silver borders. And with those silver borders, we talked about those in a previous podcast. They're coming in Scarlet and Violet mirroring Japan, which is very, very exciting because longtime listeners of the podcast will know that Jake hates yellow borders on 99% of the cards, and silver borders are superior. Sean, with these silver borders, the holo effects have recently been revealed over on Pokebeach. Foil card borders are coming in Scarlet and Violet. Pokebeach has this really cool thing. I don't know if I've ever seen them do this before. They have like little GIFs. Is it GIFs or GIFs, by the way, actually? This determines whether we keep the podcast for another year or not. Is it GIFs or GIFs?
I mean, I say GIFs, but
I say GIFs as well. That's the correct answer. Okay. Anyways, moving on. They have little GIFs of some of the Scarlet and Violet cards. I think Leonhard opened this. I think that's the background that I notice over there. He opened it and kind of showed off these holo pro. I think these are the promos.
Yeah, this is from the 3 promo boxes that you could get.
And so if you've never seen Japanese cards, right, in their holo pattern, not only is the art background holo, you know, just like you are used to in English or whatever rest of the world cards, but the border itself also, the yellow, or in this case, the silver, is also in that holo pattern. So that's really cool in my opinion. I absolutely love that on the holo cards. I'm wondering though, Sean, this is my curiosity. I wonder if the cards are going to be, because I didn't watch Leonhard's video about it, but I wonder if the cards are going to be a different material. Because I feel like, as someone who's collected both Japanese cards and English cards, I feel like they're a different material, like a card material. And I don't know if it's because of this holo pattern or what. Japanese cards, much quicker, much more easily and more quicker. God, I can't speak. They will like naturally bend. Or have like a curvature.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. All holofoil cards will develop some sort of a curvature. All of them.
Yes.
And that is
if you don't have them in like the binder, sleeve, you know, top loader kind of deal.
That's just because of the differences of like temperature and moisture. The foil layer is more rigid, and so then the paper is going to absorb that moisture, and it will absorb and it will shrink, and that will cause the warping because the foil layer, which is on top of the paper, will not shrink or do anything. It'll stay the same size.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't affect like the PSA value or anything if you get it graded. I don't quote me on that.
I don't think so.
I feel like I heard that somewhere before. But anyways, very cool that these cards are going to be like this. It's a horizontal sheen, as it's called. It's just a horizontal holo pattern in there. And then the EXs, at least in the, I think, are those the gigantic promos? Yeah, the jumbo promos that Leonhard had, the Koraidon EX and the Miraidon EX, they will feature a slanted sheen and an additional star layer on top of it. So very, very cool. I like that. I like kind of the double holo, but I mean, just really cool.
Overall, I like the new holo using the borders as well, because if you think back to like regular holo cards for the last like 5 years or so, 10 years, I don't know, they're just kind of underwhelming, especially in like the current, all the different card games out there, how they do holos. The old school Pokemon style just kind of felt like you wouldn't even know sometimes it was a holo. You're like, oh, I guess it's holo. Interesting. And once you do the whole border, then it becomes very obvious. Oh, yeah, that's a holo. That's really cool. So,
also, when you open up English product, Sean, sometimes I will get tricked opening a pack, doing the card trick, make it exciting.
Yeah.
And like when I start, unrevealing or revealing the cards, I will see a little glimmer at the top at the very last card. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's an ultra rare in here. And I'll go and I'll go and I'll go. And then it's just a regular holo rare. And I'm like, dang it, dude. Like I thought I had something good. So now we'll officially, well, I can't say you'll officially have something good, but you won't be tricked, at least.
This will be really neat. But I think that's about as much as we know about Scarlet and Violet. But Jake, are you ready to talk about some real bangers in terms of collectability?
The very, 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 very exciting set. Crown Zenith is on the horizon, coming on the way. I've seen so many people open up these sets in Japan. What was the set called in Japan? Do you know off the top of your head, Sean? I'm blanking on it.
I do not remember.
Many,
V-Star Universe?
I've watched so many. Yes, I think that's what it was. I've watched so many people open up this set, like OKJ Love, and I know some other people, like in my Discord server, like Appa, have opened stuff like this. And oh my gosh, these cards are gorgeous, and I cannot wait for all of these stinking alternate arts. I'm gonna buy a lot of these things. Apparently, the V-Star Universe, the singles are pretty cheap.
Oh, interesting.
In comparison to like latest holiday sets.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, before we really dive into the cards, I'm curious if, these cards will also be super cheap. Because I believe in like other holiday sets, aside from like the super ultra rares, like the regular like character rares or whatever you want to call it, those were pretty cheap and those were pretty easy to get. But once you started getting to like the super shiny, V Maxes or whatever, then it would get like really, really hard. Alternate arts, things like that.
I mean, yeah, it's just because like, the point you're making is like there's a whole nother set of cards that they're not the trainer gallery, right? They're like, I don't know what the subset for this one is called, but like they're basically a bunch of alternate rare cards that are in that they imagine will be in the reverse holo slot of the English set list.
Yes.
But they basically are like the same style as the character rares that we've been getting the last few years.
And the alternate, oh gosh, I just love Pokemon art. Has just been so good lately.
Oh,
Sean.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's really. So I'm scrolling down. For those of you listening, I'm just sort of scrolling through the visual set list. If you want to scroll along with us, head over to Justin Basil or Justin Basil. I can never remember how to pronounce it.
I think we've talked about it with them plenty of times.
But justinbasil.com, and you can look at the cards as well as you listen, or go to it afterwards and listen.
And in this, there's a bunch of other tabs in here as well. You can look up specific rarities of the cards that are prospective to be in this set. You can look at, utility Pokemon, attacking Pokemon, items, supporters, specific categories for the competitive side. So collectors or players, good website to look at, especially for your collecting news. And there's some big like time cards that we know and love in this set. Is that Manaphy or Fione? What's the bench barrier Pokemon right now, Sean? Manaphy. Man, I don't know why I never remember that. You get the Manaphy, bench barrier Manaphy in there. You get the Celebrations Mew, gets a beautiful art in there. The Comfey Lost Zone. Yeah, that's that one, I believe. Good. The Lost Zone Comfey is in there. Just a lot of really, really sick cards, Sean, in here.
Is this the Comfey? This one right here, the
Yeah,
flower
that's the
selecting.
comfy.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's so good.
Flower selecting comfy. You get another Luminian getting another alternate art in here. You get a bunch of like VMAX V-Star alternate arts and Zeraora, Mewtwo, Deoxys. I think we talked, or I think maybe I talked about Deoxys when it came out because I loved that card. Zacian V, not the Zacian V that's Brave Blade, but the Zacian V that accelerates the psychic energy. That's getting an alternate art in there. Hoopa V in there. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. Drapion V also gets one. Gets a Yukamori did a little figure kind of art of the Drapion V, and it looks so good. It just looks so cute. And there are a bunch of supporters in here. Colress Experiment, Cynthia's Ambition as well. There are some other ones in here like Irida, that's her name.
Oh, okay.
Irida gets one in there. Roxanne, Raihan, Melanie, Sharon's Care, like just great, awesome cards. And then Palkia V-Star, Dialga V-Star, Giratina V-Star, and Arceus V-Star, the God quad. I was gonna say the God trio, but it's a quad. You know, the God of Time, the God of Space, the God, yeah, the God of Time, God of Space, the God, and then the God from Down Under. You know, Australia. But those get beautiful gold alternates as well in this set. But Sean, there's some other things in here as well. You know, some cards maybe that I didn't mention. What else is in here?
Well, I mean, there's an awesome alternate art Pikachu. Pikachu and Friends, basically. But it's Pikachu. It's a gorgeous card. It's reminiscent of... Oh, go ahead.
It's got pretty much like all the staple Pokemon, like the big set names, the set Pokemon. You know, you see a Shadow Rider Calyrex in there, see a Urshifu.
Yep.
The rapid style, Crobats in there, Zacian, Hisuian Zoroark. One thing's not like the other. Well, two things not like the other, really.
This is really cool. Like, you know how they've done like other Pikachus in the past when they like finish off a series? It's like that kind of card, and it's such a good card to like. If you are doing a master set or like a really cool collection for the whole Sword and Shield era, I think this is like the card that you put at the front to be like, cool, this sums up all of my Sword and Shield collecting.
And especially for, you know, specific people, like there are plenty of people that collect Pikachus as well.
Yeah.
This is a really, really good Pikachu card. And it's going to be one that you're going to want in your collection.
Jake, there is another Professor's Research, though, that people can get.
It's not as good, though.
No, it's definitely. You are absolutely right. Of all the Professor's Research, I think this one is F tier.
It's perfect. What's this guy? Professor... Is it Rowan?
I think it's Professor
The Diamond
Mustache.
and Pearl. The Professor Mustache. Mustachio question.
Yeah.
This is the professor from Diamond and Pearl. I'm pretty sure it's Professor Rowan, because I think Birch was Gen 3.
Okay. I don't know.
Anyways, another Professor's Research in there. You get Friends in Hisui and Friends in Sinnoh, which is really, really cool in my opinion. Because usually we just only get one Friends card, but because there was the, remakes of Diamond and Pearl, right? Yep. Friends in Sinnoh, and then there was the Legends Arceus game, the big hit of that, different cast of characters and stuff. They also have a Friends in Hisui, which is really, really cool in my opinion.
In terms of the other cards, though, like, I'm going to skip ahead. You can get a lot of the cards that you got in other sets, potentially. Like, we don't know for sure all the cards are going to be in Crown Zenith, but odds are there will be regular art versions of a variety of cards that are, playable in their own right. I don't know if they're all new art. I don't think so. I think this is the original Charizard V-Star art, but...
I don't think so, actually.
Do you think it's different? It might be.
Yeah, I think these are all different.
It's all... Okay, so you have, like, special art and then regular versions of a bunch of pretty cool playable cards. I like how in the other ultra rare section, Justin has listed basically Simisear. It's like, who plays with that?
That card just exists. Duraludon VMAX.
Yeah.
That's a low blow to a lot of those players.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great stuff, especially 3 new. We talked about them before. 3 new Radiant Pokemon as well, Sean.
Yep.
Radiant Charizard, because of course, we got to get another Charizard in here. Radiant Eternatus, which a lot of people are excited about. We'll talk about that card later. And the one that doesn't look like the other, my favorite Pokemon in whatever generation this was, I can't remember. Charjabug, Radiant Charjabug. So to that one Charjabug fan, you got your fame, and I'm really happy for you, bud.
I will say, I got to give this Charjabug a little bit of love here. The ability, whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon V, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. There are Pokemon V that deal more damage based on the number of damage counters on them.
Yes.
And this doesn't say once per turn. So if you were able to do this and then, like, say, Gardenia's Vigor or whatever, a couple more energy onto it, or Melanie. I guess Melanie's not coming from your hand.
Yeah, no, Melanie's not from the hand. I mean, the only cards that I'm really thinking of that accelerate that from hand. Yeah, like Frostmoth, Cherim.
Yeah.
Gardenia's Vigor.
Okay. Well,
that's pretty much it, because Lugia is from the deck acceleration. Melanie's from the discard, like you said. Raihan's from the discard. But to your point, it could be interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah. You can do some cool things.
Yeah. But Jake, what does this Radiant Eternatus do? Because I think this is probably the most hyped card of the entire set.
I will say the Charizard's a reprint, so it's the same, whatever heart, fun heart, blazed heart, glorified heart, whatever
one that
it
lets
is.
You do a big attack for less energy.
Yeah, that one. Anyways, Radiant Eternatus, this brand spanking new card that we're going to talk about, has the ability Climax Gate. It's 170 HP Dragon basic Pokemon. When you play this card from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon VMAX and put them on your bench. Then shuffle your deck. If you use this ability, your turn ends. So that's the main effect that people are really, really excited about this card. Turn 1, Sean, you can skip the evolution phase and put Pokemon VMAX on your bench, which is really cool because there's a lot of decks right now in format like Palkia, Lugia that evolve. If you're going second, Sean, like if we're playing a game, you versus me, I'm playing Lugia, you're playing, I don't know, Hatterene VMAX. I don't know. You put a bunch of Hatterenes on I start my turn, get my Lugia down, whatever, get a bunch of energies in the discard. You take your turn, you put a couple of Hatterenes down, or maybe just one Hatterene down. You can only put one Hatterene down. If I evolve into Lugia, I put those Archeops down and I accelerate the energy a million miles an hour like Lugia usually does. I can boss you up, right? Or gust you up, whatever. And I can punch your Hatterene. And you basically lose the game at that point. I mean, you already lost because you're playing Hatterene against Lugia. But, you really lose the game because you lose that set of Pokemon. So skipping that and putting the VMAX on the bench is going to be huge. We've actually already seen something like this recently in the game, Sean. Do you remember?
Was it? I don't think it was Duraludon.
It was Duraludon.
And it was the Duraludon with the power-up protein shake or whatever?
Well, people may have played that. I'm thinking more specifically of the Rapid Strike Mustard.
Okay.
When it's and people were doing that with Beedrill and stuff. Beedrill's a little bit different, but I believe was it Riley Hulbert?
Riley Hubert?
At one of the full grip tournaments, I believe it was. When Arceus Duraludon was first introduced, I believe he played that in the full grip event, and he had that, and I believe we talked about how he had more VMAXs than Vs, and part of the reason for that was because he had that Rapid Strike Mustard in there to get it on the bench. So we've already seen that have success in the game, and even if Radiant Eternatus doesn't inherently make Hatterene VMAX, for example, better, it makes it more consistent and a little bit more viable, even though it's not going to be that much better, but it's going to create a lot of like cool combos and stuff in the format. It's going to create a lot of fun things that we can see. It's going to open up the format, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think that this is actually a great card for, I don't know what the right VMAX is, but like, you know, those wall stall decks? Where
Yeah,
you're like,
Duraludon.
Duraludon is a good example, but also
Although
Stonejourner.
Duraludon affects up the math. Stonejourner is probably a lot better. Yes.
So the thing about things like Stonejourner is you want to be able to put as many like specific like healing items in your deck, and later in the game when you have a bunch of like you're not going to play more than 1 or 2 VMAXs a whole game.
Yeah.
You know, because you want as few Pokemon on your bench to be gusted. You want all of them to be super beefy. And this is, I think, great because you can play an Eternatus turn 1, get both of your VMAXs on the board, and then you can almost play a deck with like a 1-2 line of VMAXs or a 1-3 or some weird combo. Because your actual strategy is to get Eternatus down turn 1, get into those 2 VMAXs, and then from there just never be able to let your opponent kill the 2 other VMAXs on the board.
Although, if you do that, though, if you do play like a 1-3 line or something obscure like that, you're going to really run the risk to where half of your games you're starting Radiant Eternatus, and therefore you cannot play that card from your hand onto your bench. So you'd either need to play Scoop Up Nets. You need to play Scoop Up Nets, right? Or you need to have a little bit more extra Pokemon in there. I don't know if there's fighting Pokemon that like beef up your HP, you know, support Pokemon or something like that, but it'll be difficult for those like kind of wall Pokemon like Stonejourner. But I do think your point is valid in that they do garner this sort of new effect, whatever, inside of it.
I solved it, Jake. 4 of the trainer search Mew.
You know what? That's actually that may not be the worst idea I've ever heard, actually.
Because you can go get item cards. And they knock out 1 Mew, they knock out 1 Eternatus, Radiant Eternatus, they knock out 1 Stonejourner VMAX. It's only 5 prizes, Jake.
Yeah, you still got to go through another big dog.
Exactly. I think I just broke the format. Anyways.
I think you did. Anyways, credit the Metapod podcast when Stonejourner Radiant Eternatus wins the next regional that it's the first regional that it's legal in, and let us know if you're the winner of this. But Sean, what other cards are in here in this attacking Pokemon section that Justin has laid out that are worth mentioning?
I mean, there's Rotom V-Star, so you know, I don't know if we've already talked about this one. Jake and I were actually discussing this. It may be a reprint. I'm pretty sure
we've talked about Rotom V. I feel like it was like projected to be in a set list, and the set list was posted on a website and we talked about it, but then like it didn't actually come out. Or it did come out, we just don't remember because it's not super viable because nobody's playing 1,000 tool cards.
Yeah, I think I think the main ones here would be Zacian and Zamazenta finally getting a V-Star.
Yes.
And they are the original typings. The original meaning like the metal typings, not the psychic typing.
Not their secondary typing, fairy, fighting, psychic, all that stuff. Well, Rip Fairy.
And then, you know, of those, like the Zacian V-Star, it has a 200 damage attack, which is like pretty good, but then you can throw a sword on there to make it even more and whatever. But
I believe, it does work because it says Zacian V, doesn't it? Oh my gosh.
And
I forgot about that card.
Yeah, Rusted Sword. And the nice thing about this one is it actually is an attack that is basically shred, but it's shred that does a ton of damage, like 200 damage for shred, which if you add the you know sword onto there, that's 230 damage, which basically gets through any Vs that might be able to block you out as a V-Star. And then its V-Star power attack does 310 damage. It does 30 to itself, but we don't care about that.
Because you're one-shotting literally everything in the format. You're one-shotting a Duraludon with that Rusted Sword.
Yep. So long as you don't got any any special energy on him.
Well, I mean, for a little bit, we'll still have Metal Saucer in the
That's true.
format,
That's true.
right?
And
I mean,
it one-shots a Mew VMAX, which, important.
yeah. It,
So,
one shots the Mew VMAX without any other items. Just get 4 energies on it. That's it.
yep.
And plus, with all this, Lost Zone stuff, like you just, especially with the Come Phase and stuff, and Mirage Gates and Chorus Experiment, you just Mirage Gate, and that's your energy acceleration. That's
Yeah.
as easy as that.
Yeah, so, like, look, we have Drapion for the Mew counter, but, this is another option for you to take it out in one hit.
Yeah.
Is this the most damage any Pokemon has ever had that's been printed directly onto a card? 310?
Base damage wise,
Yeah.
like just base damage, I'm trying to think.
Because I know that the
I feel like
Charizard VMAX did 300. And
Yeah.
Charizard, Tag Team Charizard actually did 300 if you had 6 energy on it, I think.
Yeah, you would have to do the GX Plus, which I don't know if that's considered base.
Well, but that's only 300. 310 is still more than those, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's still more than that. You might be right in that this is the biggest. I'm trying to think of what Buzzmosa did. What did Buzzmosa do for its GX?
don't
Was that
know.
240?
I don't. It
260?
definitely wasn't 310 or some crazy.
No, I think you're right in that this is the biggest base damage attack.
Yeah.
At least that I can remember. Somebody will call us out in the comments.
I mean,
Please do, actually.
It kind of makes sense to finish off, the Sword and Shield era with, like, we're going to make Zacian the hardest hitting base damage Pokemon ever. The original Zacian doing 230 for 3 energy was already broken.
Which was huge.
It was insane at the time. So 310, if you throw any sort of a tool onto that, you can get up to 340, which knocks out every VMAX, basically.
Yeah.
So it's stupid, Jake. It's just dumb.
Whether or not it's going to be viable is a whole different question. I mean, Dialga was pretty viable for a bit.
Yeah.
Right? Dialga V-Star was pretty viable for a bit.
That's because you got an extra turn.
Yeah, that's a whole different kind of viable. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But that's crazy. But Sean, what about Zamazenta V-Star?
So Zamazenta V-Star, always the slightly less interesting brother. It has a 3 energy attack, the same type of energy. It does 220, and you can't attack with it the next turn. Wah wah.
Wah wah.
Why
Indeed.
would you? And okay, I will also say they gave Zacian and Zamazenta V-Star the same HP, which is insane to me. Make Zamazenta 10 more. Make him 280.
Yeah.
He's literally the shield Pokemon. What are you doing?
Yeah, he's literally bulky in defense. Like, okay, we very obviously made Zacian V-Star in the offensive category for sure. I mean, Zamazenta V-Star is a little bit defensive if you want to talk about his V-Star power.
So yeah, the V-Star power, which you can only use once a game though. So
yes.
The V-Star power says you may use this ability during your turn. During your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 100 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon's attacks.
I think that it's like the V-Star powers are pretty fair. Maybe I would do 100 is pretty significant, I feel like, because I feel like a lot of Pokemon right now in games are just hitting exact numbers or just above. So putting 100 more on is incredibly almost impossible for most decks. I feel like the difference between these two cards and why Zacian is better than Zamazenta is that freaking first attack. Not because of the damage, but because one says shred and the other says cannot attack next turn.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, just use switching cards forehead and it works out, but I don't know.
I mean, but like the other Zacian basically has this exact attack and it does 10 more damage. The original Zacian from Sword and Shield base. And I'm just like, it's a 10 damage less.
It's very weird. But if you want to talk about another Giga Impact Pokemon, Sean, that is coming up in the set, Regigigas V-Star also has Giga Impact. It's colorless. so you can use it with whatever set of energies you want, whatever colors. It does 230 damage as well. Can attack during your next turn. The V-Star power is what differentiates it, and also because it's a 300 HP V-Star, which makes sense. Regigigas is a huge Pokemon. It's thick, stuff like that. The ability in the V-Star power is called Star Guardian. You can use this ability during your turn only if your opponent has exactly one prize card remaining. Discard one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and all cards attached to it. A very interesting effect. The only thing that I can think of is like GG End, but that Pokemon had to be in the active, right?
Yeah, it's a very specific condition too of exactly one prize card remaining.
It's one prize card remaining, but it's also a benched Pokemon, but it's also it doesn't say like take prizes with it. Like I believe Giratina V-Star says like specifically the Pokemon's knocked out or whatever, and so you take prizes. I don't think you take prizes off this ability.
No, you don't take prize. It says discard, so it doesn't knock them out.
Yeah, it's different than that. I just want to make that differentiation since I mentioned the GG End.
I will
Giratina,
say, Jake,
Garchomp.
I think that this is an interesting strategy for, I don't know if it's control or, I think this ability,
you like spread where you take out all the Pokemon on the board at once.
You could, like, this is a way to get around a Manaphy, but I think this is like a really weird way to get around Manaphy.
Yeah, like I feel like there's more efficient things.
But I think this is really interesting. If you built your strategy around not killing your opponent so that they have no prize, so you get all the prize cards, but about benching out your opponent. Like, because there's that Pidgeot deck back in the day that has you shuffle the active back into the deck.
Yes.
And the problem with that is like, oh, cool, but your opponent just on the next turn goes and gets something else, you throw it down, whatever. But you can effectively shuffle or get rid of 2 Pokemon on the field in a single turn. Mm-hmm. So if you can frustrate your opponent, get them to use a lot of their resources, right? Play cards that make you discard your Pokemon down, that stadium card, right? Collapse Stadium, I believe it is.
Yes.
So if you can kind of make it annoying and just get rid of enough of their Pokemon while they're taking prizes,
you can theoretically get rid of 3 Pokemon in a turn.
Oh, how do you get rid of the third?
Well, Collapse Stadium is one.
But Collapse Stadium only works if you have more than 4, right?
Well, everybody's filling up their bench right now in the format, Sean. Like Lugia fills up their bench, Lost Box fills up their bench, Palkia fills up their bench, right? Everybody's filling up it. I think it's safe to assume that your opponent has 5 Pokemon on the bench.
Yeah, that's fair.
In a battle. So you use Collapse Stadium, you get rid of 1, right? You use your V-Star power to get rid of another on the bench, and then you take a knockout, which is that third Pokemon, and they've got 2 Pokemon left.
That's sneaky. I do kind of, I like this strategy. Now they'll see it coming a mile away because it's a Regigigas V-Star.
Yeah. Especially in a 3-game series. But it's very hard to avoid that right now because a lot of these Pokemon are evolution Pokemon that are dominating the format right now, like Lugia, Mew, right? These are evolution Pokemon. Palkia I mentioned earlier. They've got to get the V's down. They've got to get the V-Stars in play. So it's not like the Charizard, whatever that attack ability is, unbraved heart, uncoveted, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not like just slapping that Charizard down for a lot of decks. It's that more setup situation. So this is a really cool like disruption thing. And 230 knocks out a lot of V's as well. You get some powerfuls on it probably, right? Yeah. In however way you see fit, and you're knocking out V-Stars.
I do. Yeah. That's a really good point. I do kind of like this. And especially think about things like, if you were able to do this with maybe one of the Lugia decks, and if you could...
Well, I don't know if you can do this with Lugia because, Lugia uses the V-Star power, right? To put the Archeops in play.
You would not use this in a Lugia deck. You use it against a Lugia deck.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, carry on. Sorry.
Because the interesting thing here is if you can take out their engine in one attack, right? Boss up one Archeops. use this ability to get rid of the other Archeops. They have no way of getting another Archeops in. You've won the game.
Yeah, you've essentially won once you knock out that Lugia or whatever the attacker is, Yveltal or whatever. So you're right. I mean, you're right on that.
Like I don't know. There's something really interesting about this card may be absolutely trash for a variety of reasons, but the fact that it has to be done when one prize card remaining, I think is the weird part that like you can't.
Yeah, and that's where I'm like really struggling with it because that's so late game.
It is.
Right. And especially against something like Lugia, like if they've got one prize card remaining and you take out both Archeops, like are they really that worried that you took out their Archeops?
Right. Yeah.
Although it could be that they're only really setting up one Pokemon at a time because like Yveltal needs that attachment on that turn. Sometimes Lugia will need that attachment, or Lumineon will need that attachment, or the Charizard will need that attachment based on when you put it in play. So I don't know. Maybe actually it would be the difference maker. I don't know.
I like that you can choose which one you get to discard.
You have to choose on the bench.
On the bench, but you get the player controlling Reggie, as opposed to your opponent chooses one of their benched.
Yeah, like Collapse Stadium, you know.
Exactly. One thing I'll point out
are there any other cards that... Sorry, go on.
300 HP. I'm just going to point that out real quick. Beefy V-Star.
Oh, yeah. Is that the beefiest V-Star?
It might be like tied. I feel like there's another 300 HP V, but maybe not.
Is Wailord just a V? No, it doesn't have a V-Star.
No, it does not. But yeah.
400 HP Wailord V-Star on the way.
You joke now.
It'll happen. Anyways, Sean, any other cards that we need to talk about in here?
No new card. Oh, there's one. There's Sky Sealstone. Yeah. There's an item card that is new. And it's an ability item card that gives you a V-Star ability. And basically, the damage from the attack of a basic Pokemon V, if it knocks out your opponent's active V-Star or V-Max, you take an additional prize. So, you know, I think this is a really interesting card for... Oh, what's the deck called? The one like Ludicolo and...
Oh my gosh. Suicune?
Yeah, like it's an interesting Suicune deck card. Because they're not
I
using
think that I think that this is an interesting card for a lot of decks. I mean, because Pokemon V dominate.
But it only works on a basic Pokemon V.
Yeah, but how many times do we see Boss, Cross Switch, or whatever, you know, like bring up a V on the bench? Like you got to have one in play and then one set up.
It only works if you are attacking with a basic Pokemon V.
Well, like something like Vikavolt.
True. Yeah. Vikavolt, I think, really could benefit from this.
Because Vikavolt really slows down the game, and so if you can speed up the game a little bit, although they use Force Sealstone, so I guess you'd have to weigh the pros and cons of like using that versus Force Sealstone or Sky Sealstone or something. But your Stonejourner.
Well, I think that I think the Sky Sealstone is like, whether it's in Vikavolt or a Suicune deck or what's the big fire dog?
You could even use Entei.
Entei or
with the Magma Basin.
Yeah. I mean, I think this could find a home in some places because it really does swing the math in awkward ways. Like, honestly, if you aren't going to use a V-Star power and you're playing a deck that can play Drapion, imagine putting your Drapion down, attaching this, using the ability, knocking out a Mew VMAX for 4 prizes, and all you need to do is knock out a Genesect. Easy. Now, the Drapion might be enough that like you don't really need to worry about like, but like, you know, that makes it even harder. And it's only a 1 card include.
Yeah, I mean some people were putting, I can't remember what regional this was. There was somebody that was on a stream game that put Heroes Metal in Mew VMAX. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I don't remember seeing that specifically, but
I feel like I saw that in a stream game. Now, whether that was Top Cut or Day 2 or Day 1, I don't remember, but it was something that was brought up.
Yeah.
And so it's worth looking into, as most things are with the Pokemon trading card game, I guess, playing competitively. But that's all the cards, notable cards, at least that we know for now, at least through Justin's website. More will probably be on the way. The set releases the 13th, I think you told me, Sean.
13th of Jan.
I mean, yeah, so this week, what day is it today? Next week.
The 2nd, so week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, so next week, really start looking at your stores, things like that. Start at the beginning of the week, to be honest, and really start looking for Crown Zenith, because Crown Zenith is such a cool set, and it's going to be so worth it to open up, to collect. Playing it may not be super influential, but it's going to have some cool cards in it that people are excited about and want to play with. And oh gosh, I can't wait. I'm going to get some.
Yeah, I might have to I don't normally open packs, but I might have to treat myself to some Crown Zenith.
I mean, just have some fun, just open up, get some buddies, open up. You did that with
Celebrations.
You did that with Celebrations. You open up with a bunch of buddies.
I did. So this is the kind of set that I will tell people, if you're not somebody who cracks pack very often, the specialty sets are always the way to go in terms of where to spend your money. Get a couple of ETBs or whatever boxes you can find. This will be a lot of fun. Celebrations.
I try to, it's great. Like these holiday sets, I try to buy one of every product, right? Because I mean I don't know about this time around actually, but at least in the holiday ETBs in the past, they've had a promo card in there, and so when you're buying a different product every time, like the Hidden Fates Mad Party set. Do you remember that little? I think it was a pin set. Was it a pin set?
Yeah. They did.
They had a different promo for every Mad partier. So that was cool. And so you just get one of every one, and I don't know. That's how I like it. But if you want to go Sean's way, just rip open 1,000 ETBs, then do it. You got the money, honey.
I'm trying to look and see what cool pins have been announced. There's a cool Zacian pin. There's a cool Zamazenta pin in one of their packs, and then there's a Cinderace, Inteleon, and Rillaboom pack that has pins. So those are the things, if you're a pin collector, to be on the lookout for, in my opinion.
Exactly. And we'll let you know on a lot of other things that you need to know about the Pokemon trading card game here on the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Happy 2023. Hope it's off to a good start. We'll see you in the next episode.